I got some
So
notes
we're
here.
joined all the way from Los Angeles, California, by 20 plus year military veteran Olympia Smith. We thank you so much for joining us. Former member of the United States Navy, former member of the United States Army, and now Human Resources Officer of the United States Space Force. I've got a room full here with me at Velma Jackson High School, and we're recording this for all of our friends in Madison County schools. Rosa
Yes.
Scott, Madison Central, Ridgeland High School, Germantown High School, the Academic Options Center, and our YouTube channel. So we thank you so much for joining us. We're in the government career cluster. And with Veterans Day right around the corner, can't think of a better person that's represented a great military career other than yourself. So thank you so much for joining us today.
All right, you are indeed welcome. It's my pleasure to be here to actually just talk about, career aspirations and just talk about, what a career really means in the military and to actually move on as a civilian in the federal government.
Yeah,
Um,
no, yes. So you went to Provine High School,
I did.
and we did see the clip, but it's really cool how you decided to join the Navy. So tell us again why you decided to join the Navy when you were 17 years old.
All right. Um, so, believe it or not, I wanted to dance. So in high school, I was the captain of the drill team. I was always in some type of theater, and I said, I'm going to go and be a dancer. And one day, I decided I was going to take the ASVAB, and I don't know if this still happens, but they pull you in the library and they say, "Hey, you're going to take this test. We're going to see how you're doing." Okay, so I take the test, and I'm thinking to myself, "Oh, I'm not going to do well. I'm not going to the military." But then I started. There's this gentleman. He comes in this white uniform, and he's looking. I call it crispy. He looks really nice, and I go, I wonder what he does. He's got all these stripes on his shoulders. I would like to know. So I walked up to him and I said, "Hey," I said, "My name is at the time my maiden name is Hull." And I said, "I'm Olympia Hull." I said, "I'd just like to know, what do you do?" And he turned around and he said, "Huh." And he told me he was a first class petty officer and he was a boatswain's mate. And I asked him exactly, what that means. And he kind of gave me an overview of how to get there and what to do. But I told him at the time I wanted to be a nurse. Headstrong, I'm going to be a nurse. So, but he encouraged me that going to school would be best if I wanted to be a nurse. But I told him, I said, I want to see adventure. I want to see the world. And so he looked at my scores. And believe it or not, my dad was the person that says, if you want to go, I'll support you. Your mom doesn't want you to leave, but I'll support you. But if you go, you're going to go. Don't, no holds barred. You can't come back. I want you to go and do something different if that's what you want. I made the scores high enough to go into the Navy as a hospital corpsman. That's what you call it. So
Yep.
a medic, rather. And got into school. I went to boot camp in Great Lakes. Got to school, did all those things, and swimming was my weakness, believe it or not. But I will tell you, the Navy taught me to swim. And I was after then, it's like, I'm not afraid of water anymore. It was like all these
Wow.
things that I had fear, had a lot of fear of, I was able to do in the Navy. So when I think about why I went to the Navy, it was for adventure. It was to do something different. I didn't think I would have stayed, in the military period for over 4 years. I said, I'm going to do 4 years, going to come home, just going to be a nurse. So when I think about it, I said, hey, you know what? I went to the Navy for adventure, for, new things, and being in Mississippi, I'm sure you can understand, why, I wanted to do those new things. So that's one of the main reasons I left. I mean, I got a lot
Yeah.
more. So let me say that I got a lot more,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Yeah. And by the time you were 21 years old, I think you said you'd been to 13 countries.
Yep. Right on the dot.
Yeah, you should have heard the reaction on that one. I think that's really appealing to a lot of people because the Navy really does offer that, and every branch really offers. And even though they're all similar, every branch really does offer different things. But
Hmm.
I always tell people if you really, really want to get out there, the
Hmm.
Navy really would be the place to really see places you would
Yeah.
never ever see being from
Yeah.
Mississippi, and it's so cool.
They go
But I'm glad
very
you
deep.
mentioned something about how you were a member of the medical corpsman, and I had another former student that did that in San Diego, and she
Hmm.
never got on a boat. She wanted to do it for the training. She wanted to live somewhere else. Now she's becoming a nurse and
Hmm.
becoming a nurse for free. And I think a big misconception of the
Hmm.
military, of all the branches, is we see the movies. We just think it's kick down doors, let's blow stuff up, shoot a bunch of
No.
guns, and throw
Hmm.
grenades. And that is such a very small part of what
Hmm.
the military actually does because no matter what somebody's career aspirations are, the military can find a way for you to achieve that.
Absolutely.
Especially now with you in the Space Force, these tech fields, the medical
Hmm.
field, trades, no matter what you want to do, the military can offer that. So
Hmm.
we're all about giving kids options that they can do after high school. Now, if they want to do the 4 years like you were originally planned, that is a
Hmm.
great plan. The military can provide that for you and then provide your education. But
Hmm.
there's all types of careers that can come out of a military career.
Absolutely. It's an organization within itself. This is the way that I pose it to some of the students and interns that I have a couple of interns that come and work into my, in my department. But then some of the students that I talk to at the career fairs, I said, you got to think of the military as an organization. Every organization needs what? You need HR, you're going to need IT, you're going to need nurses, you're going to need, all these different things and occupations that will comprise of an organization to make it run effectively. So when I think of the military, although it has some aspects of marching and running and being physically fit, you also have to ensure that you know your job. So these are this one, aspect of it, but then the other aspect is how efficient am I in my job? And then you bring those two things together and you're really successful in the military. I learned that really early. Just, being athletic a little bit, running, ran track in high school, did cross country, did all these things. So it helped me with my PT. I ended up being on the Army 10 miler team.
Oh,
All
wow.
these different things. Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
I did my 8 mile ruck march in air assault, jumping off planes, North Carolina, airborne, all these different things, and I tell you, I ended up being an instructor. I'm driving a 1 ton truck as petite as I am. I learned
Wow.
how to, I got my license driving these trucks. I was able to run my 2 miles in 11 minutes. I mean, and
Dang.
then, yeah, I mean, at an early age, I can't do that now. I don't know, what I can do now. But I will tell you that I remember being 17 and, running that mile and a half in the Navy in 11 minutes. So I'll correct myself. But I did do the 2 miles in 15 minutes in the Army. So you got mile and a half in the Navy, 2 miles in the Army. And I will tell you that the running, the camaraderie, learning songs, cadence, waking up in the morning and you hearing all that and you hearing different companies and divisions sing to the top of their lungs, it's always been music to my ears. Always. I would love to go hear that and just listen right now because it brings
That's
back
awesome.
wonderful memories. Hmm.
Now, after you got out of the after you when you were in the Navy Reserves, you did go to Jackson State and completed a degree because I think a lot of young people think, well, if I'm gonna go to the military, I can't go to college, and that is so far from the truth. And then,
So far from the
honestly, the
truth.
military, this is something that we weren't taught when I was in school. The
Hmm.
military really is almost like a college experience,
It
or
is.
actually, yeah, I think it is because you're living in the barracks with people from
Hmm.
all over the world, from all different backgrounds, which is the same thing college is. And
Hmm.
then you were prepared to go to Jackson State, and you went to Jackson State for nothing.
Yeah. And you have the GI Bill. You spend your first year in the military, and they turn around and give you the GI Bill, which is up to, I believe, $36,000 or $48,000, for a degree. There are several other programs. I believe it's the Post 9/11 Yellow Ribbon Program. Depending on when you get out of the military, if you are a veteran and you go to the VA for care, there's also additional education benefits for you and your family. I believe those years I spent in the military, they were very worth it because I've been able to send my children to college. Um, and also, give them the benefits, while they're in college, and kind of show them, hey, if you did the reserve, if you did active duty in reserve, and you did all these things, this is what could happen to you when you're 36 or 37 years old. Because I retired at 38, so
Wow.
and so then I, started an additional career. So I will tell you, I think it's a lot of people say, how can you retire at such a young age? And I didn't know that I would be able to and receive a check for the rest of my life. So these are the wonderful, attributes I believe that the military can afford you, if you stay consistent and diligent and seek opportunities. So I do think, like I said, it was a college experience. It was a life learning experience. I've had my children, and I was married through the military, and it's been awesome. It's hard. I would tell you, it's hard raising kids in the military,
Yeah.
leaving, going, moving, packing up, going to a different country. Your family getting used to another language, another culture, But I do believe my children really do appreciate, those things, those different opportunities in life.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned, the military is hard, but at the end of the day, that's what I tell people all the time. They're worried about going to basic training, and I'm like, yeah, it's hard, but they want you to succeed. They need new
Yes.
people because people are retiring every day. It's
Yeah.
the, they don't make it hard for you to quit. They make it hard to get you ready.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Now,
absolutely.
after you graduated from Jackson State, you then joined another branch and went to the United States Army as an officer. So, which is really cool in itself to change branches. So, talk about what you did in the Army after you already had years of experience in the Navy and a college degree.
It's kind of crazy because I didn't expect to go to the Army. I actually started running with them. I would get up and do PT, and one day I happen to be on campus and I see these people running. So I'm kind of like, they're like right here running in front of me, and I'm kind of behind them. And I kind of hear a little bit of cadence. And so I'm actually running to the beat of the cadence. And finally, one of the gentlemen, he was a first sergeant. At the time, I didn't know what he was doing, but he looked over at me and he said, "Why are you in my formation?" And I looked and I said, "Oh," I said, "I'm so sorry. I thought y'all were just running. I just, I was listening and I was running." I said, I was in the Navy." And he goes, "Oh, Blue Falcon," So we kind of, just talking. And it was kind of funny because to hear someone to understand the naval language that's spoken, it was actually, good to hear, especially being back home. And so I kept running with them. I started asking them, "Hey, when you guys run, is every morning, before classes start?" I started running with them, and then I got introduced to the Army and what I could do in college to, become a lieutenant. And I went home and I said, "Oh wow!" I said, "I think I'm going to be a lieutenant." And my mom's like, "Uh, so you're leaving again?" I said, "Probably." I was like, "But I don't know." So I got my classes changed. I started going to ROTC. I started participating in events, and eventually I went up to Fort Lewis, Washington, and completed my training.
Wow.
And I came back as one of the battalion commanders. And
Wow.
that's when I knew. I said, "Okay, so I think I can do this too." And so I left after graduation. I had to start on my master's degree in order to stay in school. So I started my master's degree at Jackson State as well. And
Wow.
so I left like mid, master's degree to
Yeah.
go ahead and go to. I had to go to training after I became a lieutenant, and it was in Radcliffe, Kentucky. And I went up there. I did about 6 months. I had a school to go to for another 6 months. And then I was back home, snatched up the kiddos, and I headed to Fort Sam Houston, Texas. And
Wow.
I became an instructor there. Um, then I deployed. That's when all the deployments started. So, but again, I would tell you that going into the Army, I wasn't aware it was so much PT. It's way more PT than the Navy. I will say that. But that start and actually, becoming a part of the Army is probably, if I compare, I got in a lot of shape in the Army versus,
That's
the
awesome.
Navy. So yeah. So just great things, learning how to become an officer. I think some of the best officers are those that have been enlisted prior and they understand
Yeah,
what
I
officer
agree.
means. Yeah.
I agree.
And so I went in guns a blazing, as a lieutenant, kind of going in, with that enlisted time, and most of the enlisted personnel, they will respect that. Okay, you're a lieutenant now, but you used to be, E5, E6. So I can respect that. So I
Yeah.
came in with that. And I had some, great assignments, great people, like I said, I've always been that person, hey, look at that opportunity. Let's hop on that opportunity. So like it was awesome. I wish I didn't have to get out.
It's crazy how many people I've heard say that. Now, and you mentioned something. I'm glad you mentioned ROTC at Jackson State,
Mhm.
because that's another option I think a lot of kids don't know about. Jackson
Hmm.
State, Ole Miss, Mississippi State all have great ROTC programs. So you can enter college as a freshman, join those
Absolutely.
ROTC programs, get those
Hmm.
ROTC classes in college. Once you
Hmm.
graduate, you go straight into OCS out of college. I think a lot of people don't know that. So talk a little
Hmm.
bit about how that works for people that say, "Look, I want to go to the military, but I want to go to college too."
Okay. Um, so when you are actually in college, if you do express interest in ROTC, especially if you're in high school already, and you have that interest, usually they will have college day or instructors to come talk to you about ROTC and to also start adding those classes in your schedule, for your freshman year. Some of the opportunities that you get is that you get to kind of talk to a lot of active duty officers, folks that are already doing it. And so
Yeah.
you can get a clear understanding as to what you're getting yourself into. So you got two things. I want to make sure I clarify this. For me, I had already been to boot camp. I was already in the Navy. I already had a total of 8 years reserve and active duty time by the time I
Wow.
went to college. Okay. And
Wow.
I was under 24 years old at the time, 23.
Wow.
So I had done all those things. And then I came in and I did not have to go back to OCS. So
Wow.
you have to understand because I already had boot camp. So the only thing that I had to go do was during ROTC to complete that officer's course, what they call LDAC, and that was
Yep.
in Fort Sam Houston. And
That's
so
awesome.
that's what I had to complete. Not the whole entire, OCS course and kind of get acclimated to being an officer and all of that. And or even having that experience at all as being in the military. And that's what
Yeah.
boot camp introduces you to. So that was waived for me. And then like I said, I went straight into active duty as a lieutenant.
That's
So,
awesome.
scholarships are offered during that time, for schools. You can also, get delayed. Like, let's say you want to become a nurse, and in order for you to go into the Army Nurse Corps, you must have a BSN.
Yep.
Okay. So they will send you, you will have, a time where you will go to school, finish nursing school, and then you go back into the Army Nurse Corps as a lieutenant, usually first lieutenant. So you're able to do that. Same thing with medical school. And
Yeah.
the great thing about it is when I became an instructor, guess who I was teaching? Nurses, doctors, PAs, and medics. So
That's
all the
awesome.
skills I learned, in the Navy and in the Army, you know, as a reservist, because I stayed reserve while I was in college until I went back active duty as a lieutenant.
That's awesome.
So those skills, like unbeatable. like learning a second chest wound, how to, how to actually look at someone and know where to stick them in order for them to be able to breathe if there's, if they were wounded. Learning how to be a field medic, but then taking it and learning how to triage and organize and move things as a nurse. So I think, like I mentioned, all these opportunities you will get to learn in ROTC before you become active duty. So these
That's
are,
awesome.
and these are field exercises. You'll learn battle exercises. And also they talk about a lot of nutrition and health. So I think it's, it encompasses everything before you actually go active duty.
Yeah, and that can be with any major. So I think that's a misconception too. You can be a business major and be an ROTC. So it
Oh,
really does.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they need everybody.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
just, if I may, I would suggest that if you are in, a business major, look into maybe healthcare management, human resources, entrepreneurship. Have some type of concentration so
yep,
that if you do go in the military, then you can look around and say, "Oh, I want to do this. I'd rather do this." So.
yep. I
Mhm.
agree. Now, before I
Mhm.
get to the students' questions, I do want to talk real quick. You said yourself that you didn't even think the Space Force existed before you joined it, because you're now with the United States Space Force
Mhm.
as a chief human resources officer out there in California.
Mhm.
But I think I'm a big proponent with all these kids wanting to get into tech fields. With all these advances in technology, you're not going to get better technology training anywhere in the planet than the United States Space Force, United States Air Forces, with all the things that they have. And you're one of the people that brings in these people to work in this new branch. So just talk a little bit about that experience. And people think the Space Force is a joke, but they're dealing with some of the most advanced technology on the planet.
Well, I agree. A lot of people kind of look at me like, "What? The Space Force? Yeah, I don't know about that." But I will tell you, the Space Force is fairly young. Founded in 2019, the Space Force was cleared to launch and to become a part of the armed forces. So it's still a baby. It's still brewing, as I tell people. It's still a baby and it's brewing. But we've had the opportunity to work with people like Elon Musk. We've had the opportunity to work with companies, aerospace, Northrop, SpaceX, a lot of different space commands in which we've had the opportunity to collaborate and work with, and to understand that the GPS is right here in Los Angeles. So when people are looking, hey, where do I go? Let me type it in my phone. Well, that's the person that's responsible for that, or the people that are responsible for that. They're parked right here in Los Angeles. Um, when you go into the buildings, there are spaceships everywhere, spaceships that have launched, that they've been able to find and kind of display for individuals to see. And also the founders and all of the different individuals that have collaborated to make the Space Force what it is today. I'm very honored to even had been chosen to be the LA Air Force Base's CHRO, and they call it CPO on the base, but well, so it's like different acronyms, and that would be Civilian Personnel Officer, Chief
Yeah,
Human Resources Officer. All of those different things are equivalent. Um, so I'll tell you, the cyber threat is what we look at.
yeah,
We are there to eliminate that cyber threat. And so, for those of you who are looking for cyber careers, IT, intelligence, cybersecurity, any of those things, this is where you come for what we call PACU interns. Um, Again, I can tell you, I can leave you a link as to how to get on there, to look at PACU interns. But I encourage folks, if you are, thinking about college, thinking about the military, thinking about the Space Force is open for you to join and in the military. It's
yep,
not just, a federal civilian career. It is a career in the military.
yep.
But again, I tell you, it is just amazing some of the things you see, you know. It does look
And
like Hollywood on the base, though, I will
yeah,
tell
and
you.
these tech companies would love to hire somebody with a few years of Space Force experience with this
Mhm.
technology. With all these new technological advances, you're looking at making a ton of money once you get that military experience in the Space Force.
Oh,
So I
yeah.
think that's something that is big time overlooked.
Yeah. I will tell you, if you're looking at salary and you're looking at and I still consider myself young. So I won't be able to officially retire for at least another 15 years. So when I think about, my career now versus the next 10 years alone, I can still do a lot more. And I would have never thought that as a little young African American girl being in Provine, being in Jackson, going to Provine, I never would have thought I would have made the money that I've made and had the benefits, that I have and had the opportunities. So dreaming is good. I would say it has been a dream, you know, um, but I will say it's been a hardworking dream,
Yeah.
a little bit of blood, sweat, and tears, a lot of sleepless nights, whether it's studying, uh, getting ready for a PT test, um, making sure, my students are ready, for any drills, any type of, weapons type, getting your weapons together, doing those different things. I've been from instructor to mom, to chief, to lead, to captain. I've been all of those wonderful things, and it's been a dream. I'm blessed, and I will tell you that I push this for all of the young students today. We do have a different generation.
Yeah.
They want microwave success, but the military is not microwave success. You got to work hard and you have to be consistent. So,
Yeah, the demand is high, but the rewards are so great. And
oh,
I
the
know
rewards are
all
awesome.
of our JRATC programs at Madison County Schools would agree with me on that.
Yes.
But I do have a few questions. I want to get to just a few of these. This person is Jada Hardy. She's in 10th grade, one of our Blue Diamond dancers here at Velma Jackson. And she asked, what is the most significant differences you notice between the three branches?
Oh, wow. Let's see. If you want to look at Navy, in the United States Navy, you have shore duty and you have ship duty. Ship duty, Um, and the majority of those differences between the Navy and the Army and the Space Force, you have to understand the Navy's on the water. They do most of their activity on the water. Even when you're on shore duty, they still train you to be on the water. They train
Yep.
you to go and to do your job out at sea. In the Space Force, and I'll do the Army last. In the Space Force, everything is on ground, but it is for cyber. It's for your computer systems. It's for everything in the air,
Yeah.
and so you have to be aware of the threat. And when you look at the armed forces in itself, it is to fight any of the enemy that comes against us in the sea, the air, and the ground. And so that's where I'll end it with the Army. The Army is about everything on the ground, special ops, triage, bringing in our soldiers and our airmen and our shipment, all of those individuals that may be on the ground, in Iraq, Afghanistan, or any of those places overseas. We're there on the ground to ensure that operations go smoothly. So we bring
Yeah.
all of those branches together to actually, it encompasses an entire organization of the armed forces. And then the different intricates of the branches actually specialize in those particular things to actually make the world function. So we're a huge part of the world, the function of the world, to ensure that we're able to fight for the protection of this country.
That's awesome.
Mhm.
I like this one. This is Madison Sims. She's in 10th grade, one of our volleyball players here. And she asked, what habits did you develop in the service that you were proud of today?
Um, so staying physically fit. That's a
Yeah.
habit. So if I gain a little weight, I'm like, let me get out there and do some walking, some running. Nutrition stayed with me because I understood what it meant to eat right, to feel good, to perform well. So, two of those habits, and mainly consistency and goals, like having those, the consistency that, you know, I guess alludes to, having those goals. So I developed consistency and hard work, which is a habit that I still have today. It's hard to get me away from my computer sometimes. And, but I know that the hard work will pay off. So if I could look at any of the things that, I've actually, developed in the military that I have now, one would be being physically fit and being consistent, and then consistency and hard work.
Absolutely. Well, I have time for one more. This is a Zaire. She's in 10th grade, member of our Army JROTC here at Velma Jackson, member of our band.
Mhm.
And she wants to be a counselor, but is also throwing around the idea of joining the military as well. But she asked, how hard was it to adjust to the different branches?
Very, believe it or not, the military teaches you and how to be resilient and adapt. Um, when you are in the conditions that you are in any branch, you're going to learn how to adapt. Was it hard in the beginning to getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning, running, eating at 5 a.m. and then going back out in the hot sun? Yes, it was difficult. But I believe anything worth having isn't easy.
Yeah.
As I mentioned before, working hard, being consistent, and just understanding that in the end, it will pay off. So when I think of the different branches and I look at how I adapted, I would say, believe it or not, the Space Force was the hardest for me. And
Wow.
that's and I'll tell you why. The culture is totally different. Everything is, digital. Everything.
Yeah.
You don't get to, just go and, oh, let me write this down. No, type this in. So again, the army will tell you, write it down, get your protractor, measure it. The Navy will tell you, oh, look in the telescope, or or go and look on port and starboard. They will tell you that, but not the Space Force. Everything is digital, everything is on the SharePoint, everything is in some type of web zip file or something like that. So I had to get used to at the stroke of a finger versus actually doing the work. So
Yeah.
other than that, it was not a difficult adaptation, but it was just different.
Yeah.
But I found myself being resilient in all three.
That's awesome. Well, we're almost out of time, and we thank you so much for getting up early and joining us as always. But before we go, I just think it's so important because me and you about the same age, and it was not that long ago where you were just where these kids were as a little girl going to Provine High School right down the road in Jackson. But yet you've parlayed that into an incredible military career that has spanned every continent in three branches and just served our country in so many different ways. So you can be quite successful going this path. So why should these kids really consider going and joining the military, even if for just a few years?
Well, I would take a look at the economy. Where we are right now with the economy, I would say that going into the military will help if you're looking into college and staying out of debt. Um, I think the GI Bill is a great. It's advantageous to look at the GI Bill and advantageous to look at the military. You would come out of the military with the experience. You would come out of the military with your college paid for. You could come out of the military with a lucrative career, even at 4 years. And
Yeah.
most jobs have little clauses that say, we hire veterans. We love our military. And I mean, who would love to come out of the military in 4 years and land a job, making 70, $80,000, as a young person, coming out of high school 4 years ago and coming out of the military 4 years later, and saying, I now have a lucrative career and I can take some pathways to have a more lucrative career. So when I think about why choose the military, look at the different things that you could go into in order for you to eliminate debt, have a lucrative career, and be moved to the top of the list to even get an additional federal job, or even, looking at any job outside of the federal government in itself. You're held to a higher standard, you're looked at, you're honored. I mean, it's just like, how do you not, how do you not go into the military or even pass up the career? Remove the thoughts of, I'm not going to be around my family every day. I'm going to be gone. Look at, what skills am I learning? What can I get out of this? And what will my future look like? Those
Yeah, and
things.
then like we said, get a chance to see places you never would have seen, um,
Absolutely.
meet
Traveling.
people you never would have met.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So again, we really hope you can join us for our Veterans Day program here at Velma Jackson. But again, we thank you so much for getting up early and joining us, Olympia Smith, all the way out there in Los Angeles, California. Thank you so much for taking time for us today.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate you
I
all.
talk to you.
Have a
I
wonderful
talk to you
day.
soon, buddy. See
Okay.
ya.